Let's have a talk, let's have a chat, talking about a little this and that.
Hello and welcome to another episode of This and That. I am your host, Mary Easterling, and today we are doing a single on interpretations on the killing of the bull. Now, the killing of the bull will be found talking about thisandthat.wordpress.com, clicking on the podcast link, looking under the single for This and That, and you will find that we did the killing of the bull. Since it is from Bob Neumann, you will also find it on our blog page. You'll have to scroll through the blogs to find the killing of the bull. This is its next item. It's called Interpretations. Killing of the bull was done 9/1998, and this was done the next month, 10/1998, so September and then October. But before I begin to listen to the killing of the bull, anything else from This and That, do go to talking about thisandthat.wordpress.com and click on the podcast link. Bob writes, for years I have taught, spoken about images, patterns, sequences, because it was, quote-unquote, the job I was given at, quote-unquote, the master's house. I am not a pastor. I am not an evangelist. I was, quote-unquote, sent to instruct, to, quote-unquote, guide. Full stop. I am not a pastor. I'm not an evangelist. I have no idea why I do these except that I'm told to do these. I was told to gather them back in the day, and now I'm told to represent them on YouTube. That's it. It seems as though God opens things a little further because these are things that were talked about in 1998, and we're looking at some of this unfolding in 2025. So, Bob writes, for you see, the killing of the bull is part of a sequence in itself. Over the years, a brother in the Lord has published the quote-unquote things Abba has said to me, the quote-unquote words Yeshua has shown me, and the quote-unquote pictures the Most Holy Spirit has whispered to me. They are not all that I have sent him or anyone else, but the brother has been most charitable at putting up with my bad spelling and weirdness, as Abba told me. It would be the quote-unquote pedigree papers for this quote-unquote old dog. For you see, within a few short days of sending out the killing of the bull, I sent out the beginning of what was my quote-unquote appointed duties. If interested, you can find them at, and you can still find them here, MIKKOJOKITALO, Mikojokitalo. You'll find a very complete set and compilation of all he's done. I've actually gone there in order to find stuff I didn't have right. Like I don't think I kept or acquired the killing of the bull interpretations. I now have it. I'm now presenting it. And as I mentioned in the single podcast section on This and That, you will find the killing of the bull. It's also going to be up on YouTube. Bob writes, but if you have a little time, take a look at all of the 1998 and the journey I've been on. If you can discern his anointing on any of the postings prior to the killing of the bull, it will help you through what follows, and part of what follows was posted by the brother on 10/11/98. Read what I was told to share at that time and strengthen yourself for what will follow. Now, full stop, we do not have, I don't think, what this man posted. Bob writes, interpretations, dear brother, I have been beyond busy these last 2 weeks preparing for what is coming. Yesterday I received a post asking for whether I had any interpretations that go with the killing of the bull and the vision of the Valley of the Shadow. The vision of the Valley of the Shadow, I believe, is also on This and That. In the more than 2 weeks since no one has asked, and it is the case with all I have shared, I have not added my quote-unquote 2 cents to it. A few people have posted and made kind comments that these visions were, quote-unquote, from the Lord. 2 people were discerning enough to say that they were more than personal words, but for the whole body, so at least 2 are getting something out of all this. But I wonder if all the quiet types are, quote-unquote, getting anything from all that is coming forth from, quote-unquote, the servants in these final moments. Full stop. Now, final moments can take years. And I have something to add on the back of this that I got today. It kind of makes things come into a scary perspective. Bob writes, Abba said I was living in the final verses of Ezekiel 33. It was, quote unquote, Watchman What of the Night that introduced me to you and all the servants on the net. But what follows 33 is 34, and that would be chapter 33, chapter 34, and a completely open judgment on false shepherds. For over a year I have waited to release a word concerning the judgment of the false authority within the 5 cities of Asia that have forgotten their Lord. Now, after all that has gone by these last 2+ weeks, I can wait to release the quote-unquote 7 Thunders another week. The 7 Thunders series is on talkingaboutthисandthat.wordpress.com. Look on the podcast page. You will find the 7 Thunders series. You will also find it in our blog. Bob writes, but before I do so, I need to share the interpretation of where all these dreams/visions/words that you, me, and all who are sharing is leading us. I know so much recently ties strongly together, and few probably notice. I think that this is what bothers me the most. Are living in the quote-unquote days of Noah, and few sons of Issachar are around. So ignoring the absurdity of the image and looking at where it first came from, this is the answer Abba gave me. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. Abba said this little children was to be recited for all his little ones who will see the indignation begin. As in Egypt, Abba stated, the plagues were sent to destroy the idols both of Egypt and in the hearts of the children of Israel. The plagues are a two-edged sword to bring, quote-unquote, my, quote-unquote, people out of their complacency and onto their knees in repentance, and to destroy the, quote-unquote, Babylonian captivity they have refused to leave. Full stop. Babylonian captivity, and then think the Nicolaitans and the Terror dominated, quote-unquote, church, as you're listening to this in 2025. Just chain those thoughts together. They all fit. Bob writes, there are 2 types of people to whom I am reaching out still in my mercy and love before the wrath of the Lamb is poured out across the world. The first are those held in bondage in Egypt, trapped in their past hurts, offenses, and addictions. These I will deliver through the servants prepared in the wilderness to do battle against the pharaohs. By the way, this is God talking to Bob. The second is those who prefer to stay in Babylon still. They have refused the calls to return to Zion and rebuild. They refuse to leave their wealth and security. I blessed their fathers and their fathers' fathers when they obeyed me even in captivity. I have sent them Ezekiel's and Ezra's in the past. Now Nehemiah has given them their last warning. Few listened and left Babylon. Remember, folks, full stop. Remember, think Nicolaitans, Tares, and the American church machine, the ministry machine. Beyond that, think about, America itself. Bob gets to that in a minute. Few listened and left Babylon. Now, judgment will begin, and for a short time the prodigals will have a door to escape from, for I am a father whose heart is tender, but I will not be mocked by scornful and rebellious children, so that door will close quickly. And here's the kicker. Listen up. Humpty Dumpty is quite literally the socio-economic, political system of America that pervades this present world. It's also a religious, philosophical system built upon a foundation of secularism, humanism, occult thinking that has infiltrated all the 7 churches. Full stop. We've talked about humanism, word of faith, Christian nationalism, amongst other things. I'm talking about this and that.wordpress.com. It's all up on YouTube. The big reveal, too, under the hood. The occult side of this has been discussed on the post Helena Blavatsky and the Theosophical Movement. That is part of the seedbed of the occult. Its thinking was restated as a ground bed for alternate Christian experiences like what started Word of Faith. So yes, all these aspects have been discussed in the big reveal 2, Under the Hood. because the occult side of this is really, really slick. It is quite literally the siren song in the colorful, iridescent night that you, oh listener, who might well be a sheep, a child, real wheat, love the Lord with all your heart, and wondering what's going on, and and feel trapped, are wondering just what this is. But it's the socioeconomic political system that I was nailed with at the end of this. Bob writes, these systems, sits high and lifted up upon the wall. It, Humpty Dumpty, dominating and controlling everything under it. Those below it look up and wonder in amazement, lusting and longing for the heights it has reached, unaware it has no safety line to keep it on the top of the wall. Today it teeters at the very edge, needing only a slight breeze to send it in a free fall to crash and shatter when it hits bottom. And at this point it seems like God is speaking again. Is it a breeze you hear, asks the breath of God, or is it the wind that is created by a great fall that you are in? Are you still awaiting a shaking as so many have warned, or have you toppled off the edge and yet to meet the ground? That's a really important line, full stop. The concept of the fall. They say falling is flying gracefully down to a sudden stop. The problem is always going to be the sudden stop at the bottom of your free flight in free fall. Humpty Dumpty's an egg. You can't put it back together. It kind of gets scrambled as it hits the ground and goes splat. Right. That's the whole problem. But the interval between the topple and splat on the ground can be years, decades even. Many things may try to arrest the fall, but you can't catch it. It's meant to hit the ground. There's a reason for this. Bob writes, the fall was great, and the king's horses now come to restore the shattered system. Listen very carefully. The first is white, the second red, the third black, the last a sickly yellow-green. They bring the quote-unquote men that the kings/princes of the world have waited a long time to send out into the world. They will not restore the shattered system, but because they bring a new system from out of the chaos and panic of the fall and splatter, you will notice it isn't the same. But they will worship the first man/writer and follow him. Full stop. In the book of the Revelation, if you look at it as a prophecy, the images present like theater. The King of Glory is clearly introduced, described. The beast is clearly introduced, described. But the first writer is simply introduced with a description and no title. The King of Glory is clearly introduced. The first writer is not. Can you worship? Is it possible to worship a deluding spirit and a lie? Why, yes. The beast is empowered by the dragon. The dragon is introduced, clearly introduced and defined in his face-off with Our Lady Fair, who gives birth to the baby, who gets caught up, and who wields the rod. Again, this white horse rider isn't named. So there are a lot of assumptions. They think Antichrist, Jesus Christ, some other thing, and until it shows up, really shows up, obviously shows up, you don't know. But I can tell you one thing. It is a deception, it is a delusion, it is a lie, and it is a spirit. And that is what we need to understand. Because all the writers are spirits. They do things to people. They're influencers. They move the gestalt of the nations in a direction to gear up to do battle with the King of Glory. That's the whole premise of the book. On the one hand is that battle. On the other hand, it's our testing. Do you get it? Bob writes, God is speaking. On your walls, Jerusalem, I have set my watchmen. Your watchmen sit with you in Babylon and speak to you what you pay them to say. My sheep hear my voice and follow me. Will you not even listen for me? Or have you decided to stay in the place a past blessing in preference to the place of obedience I now call you to. That's God talking to every one of us right here, right now. That decision, that question has been pounded into people, and they don't understand what they're hearing. That is it. Are you going to come out from amongst this and separate? Because this is the separation of wheat and tare character of people. This is the separationing, or shall I say, labeling of sheep and goat nations. We want to think of nations as geographical boundaries like France or England or America or Israel. But there are two other nations, the holy nation, the royal priesthood, and everyone else. The holy nation, the royal priesthood of Peter, are the sheep. Everyone else is the goat. Do you get it? The holy nation, the royal priesthood, is the wheat. They bear the fruit of the grape, the fruit of the vineyard, the fruit of the Spirit from the vineyard. Who is Christ? Who is the vine? Whose body is the vineyard? Do you get it? Everyone else is the counterfeit, the deception, the lie, the secular. We become, in God's eyes, the sacred, the sacrosanct, the sanctified, the separated out. Do you get it? So when you're wondering why you're not fitting in, why you're not going along with this, why you seem to be the square peg in the round hole, that ought to tell you why. Bob writes, that, brother, is a thumbnail sketch I have been given to work with. Very vivid images and very clear warnings, scripturally sound, but not what many desire to hear. I have one more thing to send you. Whether any of this gets anywhere is dependent on those who, quote-unquote, receive it. I know this is hard stuff to digest, but I think we are tired of pablum. Shabbat shalom. Bob in Goshen. Goshen is Christ, folks. That's the Goshen. Whether or not there's anything more than this is debatable. So now, I've gone through quite a bit trying to get to broadcast, and to do this broadcast has been one interesting ride. Today is the 14th of 2025, July 14, 2025. As I proofed this, I got something, 1:25 p.m. at home, Humpty Dumpty from Killing of the Bull, Interpretations, Neumann. I was given a memory trace, and this is the memory trace. Many years back when Obama was president, I was clearly told he would hand us, the nation, over to the one who would betray us. POTUS, iteration 1, came in and, quote-unquote, never left. That's right, because he ran the Republican Party through MAGA behind Biden's back. In fact, because there's all this Twitter, X, whatever, I kept dinging Biden with, Mr. President, who's running the country? You or him? Who's running the country? Because every time Biden tried to do something, Trump's MAGA Republican Party blocked it. Now we have the old guard Republican Party that it turns out really isn't our friend anymore. And then we have the new thing called MAGA. Well, okay, but this continues. In between was Biden, who, quote-unquote, had to do what was necessary, and did. Now Trump is back in actual upfront power with no real opposition. In Interpretations, there was a line, Humpty Dumpty is quite literally the socio-economic political system of America that pervades this present world. Socio-economic. Demos, Kratos. Demos, the people, Kratos, rule. That has given the nations a two-party system with at least two candidates opposing, and free elections. We've done it many places to try and reproduce democracy, where the people rule. It doesn't seem to work, does it? Look at the history. Go to other nations, and we find out that once we try this, eventually we get a dictator, and it all falls apart anyway. The other is the economic. The USD, the tariff wars, and immigration nightmare, amongst other, are under Trump being, quote-unquote, betrayed. Basically, ICE is a distraction. God's washing of the nation is also a distraction. Of course, if you're paying attention to what he's doing, you might be getting a point that he's not happy with something. You might be now on your face in repentance and in prayer. Lots of people are losing their entire lives, livelihoods, etc., due to flooding, and there is more flooding even now. Here's the point. Even if he leaves by around 2030. His tariff wars, which are in the background, talked about but not talked about, will have done the deal. I mentioned something called BRICS, BRICS. It's a new currency exchange. Where the wealth is going now to the men of the East, whilst the West is trying to get it back. BRICS is poised to capture the euro. If they capture the euro, when they capture the euro, we will lose our trade and crash our markets, resulting in, quote-unquote, margin call, and we can't pay. In Bob Newman's The Killing of the Bull, it was about the bull at a bullfight. The bull with the riders that would come up and spear the bull. That's how you do a Spanish bullfight. You spear the bull. All the fanfare, and they come up, and they bring the cape, and the bull charges, and he gets speared. And eventually, in a real bullfight, they kill the bull. That's what happens in this vision. The bull dies, but as it's dying, everybody in the stands comes down and starts carving it up while it's dying. The shattering of our economy and our national sovereignty will leave us open season and prey for everyone around us. Like I said, Canada can take part of us. Mexico can take part of us. They're our closest neighbors that are not American soil. And don't you think they wouldn't just love to pick us apart? And how many other countries own land? And there might not be little wars of Americans trying to hold on to their property. The real landowners, this is called business lands, farmlands, etc., taking over, and then whoever actually starts to carve us up, if it's a Canada, Mexico type thing, fighting these to incorporate and take away that land for themselves. In other words, you still have war, tanks rolling on the boulevards, and all of this, and you may also have UN troops, which would be multiple uniforms with sky blue helmets, or white helmets with a sky blue streak, whatever it is they're wearing today. And that would be peacekeepers. And somewhere along the line, your first rider goes from being a spirit to being the setup for Mr. Beastie number 1, who gives rise to Mr. Beastie number 2. And then we have the whore riding the beast. Do you get it? Because he also talks about the religious, secular, humanist, occult thinking, which we've talked about briefly under the Big Reveal 2, Under the Hood, talking about this and that, .wordpress.com. I'm not sure when this is going to hit the deck, but after Trump, I'm not sure what's going to come into office. I'm not sure how we're going to put things back together, because right now we have a leadership and an administration without restraint. Too much is going in the same thought process as POTUS. We've never had this before in our nation. We've never known this kind of power struggle going on. This is the drama llama stuff. You could make a great movie out of it if it wasn't so real. Following this, I think there's going to be something called I Grieve. However, we do not need this to get too terribly long, so I want you to think about Humpty Dumpty in free fall, because I don't think that we're on the walls anymore. If we are at toppling point. What is happening in this nation and the amount of resources that are being demanded from our federal government cannot continue to be covered. We cannot continue to pay the bills. We're not taxing enough in to spend it out, which was another problem that we've had, which was taxing and spending without setting aside and saving. So many people groups have been shattered now and are about to be shattered shortly. And we're only in the first of 4 years. My warning to everyone is year number 3. As the elections take place, I shudder at what this man will do to us. If he decides he's going to give it up, what he will do to us to ensure that he leaves a lasting legacy that is felt through several presidencies, if we can get them. And I hope we do. But the pendulum he has swung to the far, 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 far right is going to start coming back around to the far, 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 far left, which Obama swung. He was the handoff to a betrayer. This man is the betrayer. What comes after this, I cannot imagine. I have someone who says she has gone in the spirit realm to the year 2060 and saw that we were still around. And I challenge whether or not this is truly the United States of America or the North American continent, or we're back to being some sort of America after some sort of a massive war, because we were rebuilding from a war on our soil. That's the gist, I believe, of what this person said. We were rebuilding. Do you get it? And then there is the indignation and the day of the Lord. And how long could that take? And when does that start? Because until the lights go out and the sun is sackcloth, we haven't started to see it. We just haven't started to see it. So for those of you that are saying, how long, O Lord? Keep saying it. Don't give him any rest. Surely he comes, to which I say, Hine hu ba, behold, he comes. And that will do it for this episode of This and That. Until then.